You're watching Point Blank KTN News here at the Nairobi Serena with our Cabinet Secretary for the Devolution, Rodvick Eugene Wamalwa.
Yes.
Waziri, moving on, switching gears, her ladyship, Nancy Baraza, when she was here at Point Blank, told me now she's able to confirm that you've just finished your master's in law.
Yes. It wasn't easy.
She said Kalonzo was there as well.
Yes, and he also graduated and got his master's.
Well, why I'm asking you about the issue of, studying, it's a constitutional issue.
Yes.
I am wondering whether the 2010 Constitution, as exists now, is on strong foundation. Whether or not, the cabinet, the government, yourself as Eugene, would entertain this question of a referendum. I think a lot of Kenyans do not know why there is that discussion. What was it in the 2010 Constitution, in your mind, that needs to be looked at or not?
First of all, I want to thank you, TG, for giving me the opportunity to address this matter. Before I came to the Ministry of Devolution, I was the Ministry of Water. Before that, I was in the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. I had the privilege of receiving the Constitution from the late Mutula Kilonzo, who was the Minister in office during the promulgation. And our role, together with the CIC, our brother Charles Nyachai, together with CIOC, our brother Abdikadir Mohammed, and Njoroge Vaya, was really with the Law Reform Commission and Professor Guido Muigai, the Attorney General, was to see the implementation of the Constitution. And I must say we are very proud that we were able as a country to not just to promulgate one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, but to also implement it. In fact, the other day I was very, very happy when I was in Narok to see His Excellency the President invite the Central Bank of Kenya governor to do what we were late in doing as part of implementation of that constitution. Under Article 231, we were required to change our currency to conform with the new constitutional requirements. So I was very happy. These are some of the last things in terms of implementation of our constitution that had not been done.
So Waziri, I'm very happy you've raised that issue yourself.
Yes.
Because critics of the government, critics of the president, and I've been saying that the monster of corruption has stopped you from acting.
Yes.
And people are saying that it was an afterthought. This whole issue of the central bank and new currency was not government policy, was not being faithful. It's not that you had fidelity to the law.
Yes.
It is because the politics of 2022 have begun to show their head. So people see the governor in Kajiado as a political, not a policy. Is it?
I think it is wrong for us to politicize everything in this country. And I think that is our biggest undoing as Kenyans. We want to politicize everything, including money. Now, what we saw happen in Narok was not really a political decision. It's a constitutional requirement under Article 231. It's a constitutional imperative for us to have the new currency. In fact, I would say we're 9 years late in terms of implementation of our constitution. All the other parts we have implemented successfully, including the issues of devolution and devolving functions and power and giving trillions of shillings actually to the counties up to now. We have done very well. In fact, we are a case study in the world in terms of decentralization. Now, what we need to do as Kenyans is not to look at everything in terms of political lenses. This issue of money, let us treat it as a constitutional requirement. Let us have it implemented faithfully. And I must congratulate His Excellency the President and the CBK governor for doing this. It was a long time coming. It was late.
So Waziri, let me give you some numbers.
Yes.
Because here at Point Blank, we do some research.
Yes.
300 billion shillings exists thereabout in cash in our economy.
Yes.
About 70% of that amount is in 1,000 notes.
Yes.
And this is the one your cabinet is targeting.
Yes.
The small scale people in Kenya use 200, 100 shilling notes. The 1,000 note is not normal currency for normal transactions.
Yes.
Because companies are in corporate accounts, etc.
Correct.
So you can't get away from the fact that this money is not in the bank.
Yes.
Tanzania has already said Kenya shillings are not acceptable in Tanzania.
Yes.
There is a statement coming from the British government, I think, shortly.
Yes.
What, these thousands, where are they? Because they're not in the bank. And they're about 70% of 300 billion. So as a government, you know where this money is not in the hands. Where is
For now, let me urge Kenyans not to politicize the issue. Let us allow the experts who have been mandated by the law to deal with monetary matters, to provide monetary policy leadership, and that is CBK as an independent organ of the Constitution. Let us allow them to do their work. In due course, chips will fall where they may, but let us respect the Constitution and support the governor and the government in implementing the Constitution.
This is cabinet government.
Yes.
And under the Westminster model.
Yes.
Are you confirming money laundering, anti-money laundering policy announced by the governor of central bank is cabinet policy?
We are saying we already have
Point
a
blank.
policy, we have an act against money laundering. And what the governor is doing, he's mandated to do by law. And the governor is not a politician. So let us allow him to do his work. Let us allow him to do his work.
Even if you will not answer my question,
Yes.
our Kenyans have heard what I've said.
Yes.
That the government has identified there is some money that is not in the banks.
Yes.
And it's not doing business.
Yes.
So this is not politics. You are saying it's policy.
Yes.
Will the government shy once this money is found? Where will people bank? Because this money they're trying through Forex Bureau, through the banks, and I'm sure there is secret cabinet discussions. So I don't know how far you can go.
Of course, we cannot disclose what we discuss in cabinet, but we have said once the CBK has given a policy direction on a matter, it's mandated under the Constitution, let us respect it. And like I said, let the chips fall where they may.
So my last question on this issue, because Tony Gashoka, they know it's point blank.
Yes.
You are aware 70% of 300 billion is not in the banks as cabinet.
Yes.
You're aware.
Of course, there's quite
It's a
a
point
bit
blank, yes, no, was it?
that is not in circulation.
Are you aware?
We want that money back in circulation.
And no stone will be left unturned?
No stone will be left unturned.
And no sacred cows?
In this government, there are no sacred cows.
Eugene, I want to move on. Since your brother and His Excellency the President was elected, people had so many expectations of the younger generation and a change of tone, an urgency of now. Corruption seems to be the byline of Jubilee. And I put it to you, Kenyans are tired, Waziri, of this cabinet, this government, and all the good words and no action. Why is corruption destroying the credibility of the so-called Uhuru generation under your watch, Waziri?
May I say, before I come to the issue of corruption, on the issue of the Constitution that you had asked me, we welcome the national dialogue that's going on in terms of the constitutional debate that's going on. And we are happy that it's going on in different forums. When it comes to the devolution family, we have governors who are already dealing with the issue. They have even formed a committee under the chairmanship of Governor Kiraito and Professor Kivude Kibwana. In due course, they're going to tell us their views on how we need this constitution change.
And I'm going to come to that.
Yes, on how we need...
Are you escaping the corruption question?
No, you had asked me about the constitution.
I'm coming to the constitution.
Yes.
On the issue of corruption.
Yes, I'm coming to corruption because you had started with the constitution. So may I finish the constitution, then I come to corruption. All I'm saying is that let us allow Kenyans, because this is it's their constitution. In fact, when it comes to this debate, we should not personalize issues or politicize. Let us address the issues. Because when we're passing this constitution, you do remember, TG, there are those who said 80% is good, let us pass it and amend the 20 later. There are those who said this 20 is not all right, let us amend it first before we pass it. But in essence, we all accepted this constitution. It's not perfect, but we can improve on it. So my position as the former minister for justice.
As I ask you about your permission, I want you to be clear as former minister, but also as Jubilee, you're divided. So clarify as former minister and clarify where you sit, because it seems, is the government going to speak in one voice? as you expound?
First of all, the issue of the constitution is not a government issue. This is an issue that belongs to all Kenyans. This constitution belongs to all 45 million Kenyans. And we must allow them to speak about their constitution, to tell us what they want. Through the BBI, they're going around receiving views. Through the governor's committee, they are representing counties. They are the wearers of the shoe of devolution. They know where it pinches. And when you ask them, and I've been conversing with them, they know exactly why we need to change this constitution, where we need to change it in order to strengthen devolution.
Point blank, where is Wamalwa Eugene on the matter of the constitution?
As the Minister for Devolution,
former Minister of Justice.
Yes, and former Minister for Justice, I have said the time has come for us to look at what needs changing. So the issue really should not be if, the issue should be what. And when you ask the governors, they know exactly what needs to be changed. When you engage the judiciary, in terms of the quorum of the Supreme Court, when you talk to the Judicial Service Commission, they know exactly what needs to be changed.
So does Eugene Wamalwa point blank want the executive to be changed?
We know that we have issues, including the issue of the constitution of the executive.
Did you want
when you ask us as the executive, we know what needs to be changed.
So Kinaga Ubaga,
yes.
Do you want the executive changed in a referendum? What structure does Wamalwa see as a senior lawyer, as former Minister for Justice?
I think as a former Minister for Justice, I served in a government that had a president, that had a vice president, that had a prime minister, had 2 deputy prime ministers, and we had a very inclusive Kenya. I can tell you today, point blank, TG, this country is big enough for all of us. In our father's house called Kenya, there are enough rooms for all of us. We were over 40 ministers from ODM, from PNU. We were able to serve this country diligently in a government of national unity. So let no one tell us that Kenya is not big enough or government is not big enough for all of us. So
I'll be very brief to you. Musalia Mudavadi has said
yes.
He's for a referendum.
Yes.
Raila Odinga has said
yes.
He's for a referendum.
Yes.
Wetangula has said he's
yes.
for a referendum.
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes.
Within government, I've not had the privilege.
You are forgetting. I think I was amongst the first during the devolution conference to speak in support of the referendum. So may you add me to that list. That
so Eugene Wamalwa is saying the country is listening.
The last Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs has said he supports a referendum.
On the executive.
We need to change the constitution, need to change, look at the executive, look at the judiciary, look at how to strengthen devolution, look at including the legislature. When you talk to the parliamentarians, and I was very happy, I was talking to Senator Murkomen and Mutula. They have already made proposals in the Senate. As we speak, the Senate has already passed what they need changed, including the issue of what goes to the counties. This is a conversation that should not be partisan, actually. We should be looking at what is good for Kenya. In fact, we should not, TG. I say this once because I saw the divisions coming in terms of who is supporting Raila, who is supporting Ruto. But I said, this constitution is not for Uhuru, it's not for Ruto, it's not for Raila, Gashoka, Wamala. This constitution is for Kenyans. We should be looking at what is good for the country, not what is good for me, my party, my region, and my religion. So it should be what is good for Kenya. That's what the Constitution is all about. It's what brings us together as Kenya. It's what makes us
taking
Kenya.
Your words and writing them down on paper.
Yes.
Those who have said they support the deputy president have said that the constitutional referendum is a way of stopping a certain presidential bid. You're saying the constitution is universal and it's timeless. The reason I'm asking is that Kenyans are confused because, if you hear Jubilee, not the opposition, and almost disjointed.
Yes.
Kenyans become confused. Does the government, are the friends of the president, where is it an Odinga agenda?
I'm saying we should not personalize or politicize this issue. I think we should have some sobriety and maturity when talking about a matter that is the heart and soul of Kenya. This is what the Constitution is. It's what makes us a nation. It's how we want to be governed as Kenya, 45 million of us. So we should not reduce this thing to a 2022 agenda or a personal or a political issue. Let us look at what is good for Kenya. And when we do, we realize that there are areas in our constitution that need changing.
So
We will know that though we have the most progressive constitution in the world, not in Africa, that constitution can still be improved in certain ways. And what I've been advocating for with the support of the governors, and I do support what they're doing, is that we should make actually devolution the centerpiece of this constitutional debate. Because when devolution wins, every Kenyan wins. I think that is where our focus should be, more than looking at how this would serve so-and-so in 2022 or 2027. Right. This constitution should be made to last forever.
So Waziri...
For generations to come, we are not making it for our generation.
So Waziri, I put it to you,
as
senior counsel, when the rubber hits the road, and those you have advised and who are watching you today don't agree with the position you've elaborated, that there should be a referendum that cures the executive, the Supreme Court, and parts of the legislature, etc. If they say no, and the referendum question is put, where will history have Wamalwa Eugene?
I think it's
even if they're in your own government.
May I say it's a democratic process?
I'm asking you, not them.
It's a democratic process, TG. You remember, you and I were there supporting the last constitution. And,
I was there with you in Kampunji.
And we had over 6 million votes saying yes to the constitution. We had over 3 million saying no to the constitution. Those are Kenyans. So I'm saying today, this debate is healthy. Let us allow Kenyans ventilate over the issues. And when the referendum comes, let Kenyans make a decision. Of course, there will be those who say yes to the referendum and the changes that will come. There are those who say no. It is perfectly the entitlement. And all we need to do is avail that.
Point blank.
Yes.
I've heard you, and I'm asking you point blank.
Avail the opportunity to them to make the decision. For me, I would campaign for strengthening of devolution. As from where I sit, I see how devolution has changed this country. If we made devolution the centerpiece of this discourse on our constitution, every Kenyan will be a winner. Every Kenyan will be a winner.
I can't push you beyond that.
Thank you very much.
Because I actually wanted to hear your view as well on corruption.
Yes, that is on the constitution, and as far as corruption is concerned, I know, TG, you are a lover of Shakespeare, as I am. You're a true Shakespearean. But you recall these words, that there's a tide in the affairs of men, which, if caught at the flood, brings fortune, but missed, life's journey would be bound in miseries and shallows. I think as a country, we stand on such a sea now where we can capture the tide and change the direction of this country and the history of this country. Why do I say that, TG?
Yes.
Because we have a president. We have a president. And I remember when we had the TNA launch and I was endorsing him, I told Kenyans, if we had President Uhuru Kenyatta as our president, two things that bedevil this country, tribalism and corruption, are things he can deal with, and he is in a very privileged position because we have a president on a continent in Africa where people come to power to seek enrichment,
I know,
to accumulate wealth.
You and I...
Uhuru does not need to accumulate wealth from anyone or to steal from Kenyans.
As much as we love Shakespeare,
secondly,
I'm taking to ancient Rome.
Yes.
And in ancient Rome, there was Brutus.
Yes.
And Brutus had to stab Julius Caesar.
Yes.
And he said, because of Rome, the dagger that I put in Julius Caesar, I'll put for myself.
Yes.
Wamalwa, on the issue of corruption, the cabinet, the people who support this president, are you ready? Are you ready to spear? Is Brutus there to put the sword in the heart of Caesar?
It's not about...
If it is Caesar,
it's not about
fighting.
It's not about fighting anyone or
any
community. TG, what Mark Antony said and what Brutus said is not that I loved Caesar less, but I loved Rome more. So if changes are going to come in the war against corruption, which must be won as the president has vowed, it will not be that Uhuru loved anyone less, but it will be that he loved Kenya more.
Brutus stabbed his best friend.
It is his calling, and it is his legacy depends on it. You had me in Kirinyaga during the Devolution Conference. The legacy of Uhuru Kenyatta depends on whether he wins or loses the war against corruption. And that is why we have said, as national government, we must support the president. We have also called upon the counties that as the president fights this war from the top, the governors must fight the war from the ground. Just the other day, I was at Bomas of Kenya, urging the private sector. We cannot win the war against corruption as government alone without the private sector. Who are the people bribing national government officials? Who are the people bribing officials at the county? They are the business people with money. So we must have a private sector on board. We must have all hands on deck for us to win the war against corruption. Eugene, so this is something that we must all do.
Eugene,
and before I conclude, TG, one other example I gave is that this issue is not about Uhuru Kenyatta alone. When you listen to Cyril Ramaphosa during his inaugural speech after his re-election, he declared war against corruption in South Africa. You listen to Buhari in the West, Lagos, Nigeria, there's a clarion call is the same. They're declaring war against corruption in Nigeria. When you listen to Sh1000 in DRC, he declared war against corruption. So it's not only Uhuru Kenyatta who has declared war against corruption. So we must not ethnicize or personalize the war against corruption or politicize
my grandmother used to say,
let us support the president for us to win.
My grandmother used to say, when you point your finger at somebody, three are pointing back, and God is a witness.
Correct.
How many of your colleagues in cabinet have been prepared to step aside when their names are brought in disrepute, as was done under Kibaki, where a man falls on his sword? Azo Amalwa, who sits in that cabinet, do you want your name associated with people who are implicated in grand corruption? And you share a cabinet table, and you share a government with them. What is your view yourself about the principle of stepping aside?
The law is very clear.
Point blank.
Point blank, TG, once you face charges, you are brought to court, you must step aside and allow your name to be cleared. And I think the president was very clear when he addressed Parliament. What we want to avoid is the politicizing, the war against corruption, and the mob lynching. The mob justice must be avoided. Let due process take place. And I can tell you, TG, I have been called to the DCI. I can tell you this. They are very professional. No one should attack institutions to say they don't want to go to Karura or Karura is being used. When the DCI calls you, he needs information from you. And when you give that information, it will assist in the investigations. So no one should feel belittled by being someone of the DCI or any other agency, EACC, to give information. Let us support these institutions. The only way we are going to win this war against corruption, TG, is by institutionalizing the war against corruption, instead of politicizing it, instead of ethnicizing it. I say this because when we as leaders attack institutions, we erode public confidence in these institutions. We have a very painful history as a country where we come from. You remember after the 2007 general elections, when we said we will not go to this court bandia, we took the battle to the streets. What happened? Post-election violence, our economy that was doing very well, growing at 7.1%, in weeks of post-election violence, the growth was reversed to 1.7%. We are still struggling. We have moved up to over 6% now. So TG, we are saying, let us respect our institutions and the rule of law for us to win the war against corruption.
And you, as Eugene, stand with Uhuru on this issue?
I do 100%, and as cabinet, we do stand with the president. And as national government, we are supporting the president. We are urging the governors and the counties to also do the same, and private sector, because it takes two to tango.
No, and your cabinet colleagues, anyone should never fear the principle of stepping out.
No one, and
the law, are watching you.
And the law is clear, TG. I say this in Kirinyaga, what the Bible says, that if it is the little finger that makes me sin and miss the glory of the kingdom of God, I would rather that little finger is cut. Even if that little finger is Eugene or Amala, let it be cut so that Kenya survives. I think a time is coming when we must bite the bullet. Let us allow institutions to do their work. If CBK is changing the currency as per the constitutional requirements, let us allow them to do that. If DCI, DPP, EACC are doing their job, wanting any information, please go there. They will give you a cup of tea, they'll talk to you. And at the end of the day, TG, the only thing I want to advise our institutions also is that winning this war will not be about drama. Winning the war will be about the quality of evidence, the quality of prosecution, and that is how we're going to win this war.
Well, you're watching Point Blank with my age mate and brother, the Honorable Minister for Devolution, who has told His Excellency the President that Brutus had a dagger and he put his best friend, Julius Caesar, and said, I leave it for myself. Nobody is above the fight for corruption. This is K10 News.